This is the X-ray lab at the University of Birmingham, and in this lab we use X-rays to study solids. So we learn about what is in solids and how they're made up, the sort of structures that are inside them. So when we look at solids, different types of solids have different structures. So here's just one example, and you can see some other ones up on the shelf above me. And we can use X-rays to look at these structures, and that can help us to understand where those solids came from, how they're formed, and why they might have different properties. So in the Mars rover, they're going to use X-rays to study the solids, the rocks that are on the surface of Mars, and see if they can work out whether some of those rocks came from living creatures. They're going to use a technique called X-ray fluorescence. We've got an instrument here that can do X-ray fluorescence. You can see this one's quite big, comes up to my shoulder. The one they've got on the Mars rover, they've managed to squash down into a much smaller box. And this machine here can tell us a bit about what is in rocks and where they might have come from. In our lab here, we've also got other types of X-ray machines that can tell us about the structures of solids. So there's models that I just showed you right now. This sort of machine can tell us about how those structures appear. Okay, so we've got quite a lot. You can see this whole room is filled with different type of X-ray instruments, and all of these can tell us about different types of solids. So obviously on the Mars rover, they're going to study the rocks that are on Mars and try and learn about where those rocks come from. Maybe those rocks were formed millions of years ago by living creatures. But what we can do in our laboratories here at the university is study solids that we've made. And there's lots of reasons you might want to do that. So here, for example, this is an instrument that's testing new types of batteries. So obviously we've got batteries in our phones, in our laptops, and even in some cars nowadays. And there's a real need for new types of batteries, better batteries that last longer and that can be recycled. So one of the things we do is make new solids that can be tested in batteries, trying to make better batteries. And we can use X-rays to study those materials that we make and understand them and see why they might be a good battery material. So there's loads of ways that you can use X-rays to study solids, from rocks on Mars right the way through to new battery materials.